Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on YouTube, Coffee with a Poet. And I have the privilege of introducing Vera Scar. She is with us today. And we are doing a series on youth and poetry. And we're going to investigate the young minds and poetry. So we will begin. Hello, Vera.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being in the studio today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Yeah. So, speaking of youth, tell the audience how old you are.
Well, I'm 17 right now, but I'm going to be 18 next week, or the week after.
Okay.
I think.
Excellent. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing poetry, and...
Well, I kind of have been writing since I could pick up a pencil and learn how to sound out words. But I began being interested in poetry in 3rd grade. I had a teacher, I think her name was Mrs. White, and she really loved poetry. And back then it was mostly limericks and fun poetry like that. And so that's what...
Limericks are fun. I love writing limericks. They're lots of fun.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what was so that's your earliest memory, probably, of writing poetry, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So who is your greatest literary influence?
I think J.D. Salinger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what do you like about that poet?
Well, he's not a poet, but he's really good at writing.
Yeah.
And that kind of influences my poetry.
Yeah.
Just the way he writes and describes things, it makes it feel very real. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it's really influenced how I write too.
Excellent. What's your favorite book that he's written?
I think it's hard to choose. I love everything he's written. I think my favorite is Franny and Zooey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to read that.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Tell us a little bit about what your writing process is like.
I'd say my writing process is a lot of just thinking, mostly. I'll write for a bit and then just a sentence or less, and then I stop and think for a long time and just kind of go over what I could say next a million different ways. And then once I finally have it, then I write it. And sometimes if I'm writing something that's a bit harder to come out, I try to meditate on it or kind of just really think deeply about it.
Yeah. Excellent. So I know you mentioned to me one time when we were talking about poetry, and you said that sometimes you'll get an idea when you're standing in line at the grocery store. So you get your phone out and you put it in, and that's awesome, because I know sometimes it's easy to lose an idea so easily with your cluttered mind, or mine anyway.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent way to keep those thoughts down so you don't lose them.
Yeah.
So, excellent. So, so can you talk a little bit about your writing process? Is there something things you do before you begin writing, or?
Not really. Usually, I write very randomly. I don't have routines. I found that routines they kind of take away the creativity. So I just kind of write when I feel that I need to, and that way it comes out more authentically. And usually I write in times where I have a lot of big emotions and I need to just find somewhere to let them out.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Now, do you have a piece that's published, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that piece, I called it Nature's Lament. That was a short story that I published. It won a writing contest for the Pikes Peak Library, and it's published in the anthology for 2023, I think.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you want to share some of that?
Yeah, of course. Okay. I have some on my phone here. So my favorite excerpt from it just kind of came out of nowhere when I was writing it and made it more special for me. And it goes, The wind grew stronger and began playing in the overgrown grass behind them. Vibrant waves of green undulated like the ocean, while attentive darts of dirt flew around Boris and the girl. Some darts buried themselves in the girl's hair, only momentarily, as if to seek refuge from the all-encompassing wind. The right side of her face was decorated in specks of wet dirt, scattered upon her temple and cheekbone like sparse rain on dry concrete. Then everything stood still by the hands of nature. The unkempt grass became a mosaic plastered near the train tracks, something God himself would sob for if he gave the time to look. But few people did. Instead, it seemed more human to worship an ever-present ego, to succumb to the beauty and grace of humanity that never existed, and be ushered into the death of natural disorder. Given the man-made morals painted on every wall, portraits of human nature weren't accepted. No one cared for those depictions, but the grass didn't understand. It wasn't man-made, and its only concern was to exist, to dance under the influence of the wind and sun, to experience lushness and death, to be nothing but a blade of grass.
That's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah.
what is the premise of that poem? What is kind of the basis of that story?
So it starts off, well, in the contest we had to have a sentence to start every story, and it had to be the same. And I think it was something like the train screeched to a halt. And so I was trying to think of something, like a story to go with that. And I had this story idea that I had written in one of those moments where I was just like, it came in my head in like a grocery store line or something. So I just tied it into that and decided to start in the middle of like a dialogue. And then the story just kind of became this big dialogue of this girl. She's like on the train tracks, you know, just kind of, she wants to just end things, but then this guy comes along and he's trying to help her out, and they're just discussing like what it means to be alive and how hard it is to find purpose and joy in a time of life that's so difficult and so just overwhelming.
Yes, and that's very relevant to today, I would say. Very relevant for probably possibly a teen, but definitely for anyone, any age.
Yeah.
So we can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. What themes do you like or do you gravitate toward in your writing?
I think primarily like existentialism and the more philosophical themes, I guess. Yeah.
What's your favorite style to write?
I still haven't decided.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn new styles. I like surrealism and the stream of consciousness, and
Nice.
yeah, so I'm trying to work with those more recently.
Very good. So, can you read one of your favorite poems?
Yeah.
And talk to us a little bit about it. What it is, why it's your favorite, also.
Okay. Yeah. This one was. It feels the most authentic for me, because everything I wrote just kind of came out. It was written in a time where I had just gotten over. Well, I didn't get over it, but I was like 7 months into a breakup, and it was really hard on me. And the thought of this person just wouldn't go away, and I felt so close to them, and they just weren't there. So it's kind of
A poem about loss. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know what else to title it, but this felt the most authentic for it. It's called "I Wrote You This at 10:35 p.m. on Friday, June 2nd, 2023." And it goes, "Somewhere between dream and reality, you compared me to the stars. Sea foam and longevity distilled by your remarks. My whispers grasped onto you, hidden in your heart. Now reverberate in your bones, they cry, her skin's been torn apart. In life I read you Poe, in dreams I read you Salinger. Palpable though it seemed, you didn't like either. But somewhere in between you had me in your dreams. You cried when you missed me sing, and my absence left a sting. I didn't care, I wanted to cry at night. I wanted you there to mimic my blue sighs, but your sights were set askew, amiss while my eyes were set on you, my eternal bliss. They don't mix, they shouldn't exist. I knew this, I didn't care, you shouldn't exist. You don't exist with me, please, and dreams don't exist. But together we can sit again, even if it's just as friends. My life you can take as yours or for granted, but please, I insist, be in my reality, even if it's slanted.
Excellent. That's good. A lot
Thanks.
of imagery in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good.
thanks.
So where do you see yourself? So you're going to be graduating this year, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future? How do you see yourself moving forward in your writing?
I'm not really sure. I know I definitely want to stick with writing and learn as much as I can to grow and become better. And I want to hopefully be able to write my own stuff and make money from it. And hopefully I can base my life around that.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll study it in college and continue your studies in literary
Yeah.
science? Is great. Wonderful. So how do you see poetry evolving? So you've probably read a lot of the older poets and things and studied that. So how do you see, as of today, how do you see that evolving with a younger generation? Do you see an evolution happening, a change?
I do feel like a change in it, just the way that people's attitudes are towards poetry. I mean, I haven't lived in the past, but it seemed like it was valued more back then, and it feels more authentic and valuable just reading it. And now I feel maybe it's just like the age group that I'm a part of, but a lot of my peers see poetry as a chore for school, and they don't they don't like it, and I feel like the true meaning of poetry is kind of lost, and now there's bigger poets out there, I guess, that I remember reading a book called Pillow Thoughts. I forget who the author was, but I remember reading that, trying to get into poetry, but I felt like it wasn't as deep as I was looking for. And I'm a bit nervous that poetry is going to turn into more of that side of poetry that's, I feel like, is more fitting for a sign that you'd put in your house somewhere as decoration, you know. I feel like people are calling that poetry now, and
I see.
yeah. So I hope that moving forward I can help be a part of making poetry more valuable again.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would really be great. Yeah. So is Pillow Talk a recent book then?
It was Pillow Thoughts.
Pillow Thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Pillow Thoughts.
Yeah, it was really popular when I was like 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because it sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. So okay, are you seeing any books coming out recently in the last couple years that are more geared toward the youth and poetry?
Honestly, I've been more interested in older poems.
Okay.
Yeah, doing a lot of studying in those. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are excited to hear more from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, of course.
This is wonderful. And thank you all for joining us today.